You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. And be sure to smash that like button. Shea Dixon on 3, the Bengal Tigers. Shea, how are you, man?
I'm doing well. How are you, Matt?
I'm doing awesome. We appreciate you for making it work today. Hey, by the next time you and I speak, LSU will have begun spring practice. That'll be on Saturday. Who's going to be coaching the D-line on Saturday?
I don't know if anybody will be.
Okay. Let's let them run out there.
Is that a fair answer? I don't think that's the end of the world, but I don't know. It won't shock me if they have a hire done by then, but I wouldn't be surprised if they don't. I think the goal is getting the hire right rather than worry about, hey, we have to rush something and get it done by, this date.
If they don't have a permanent D-line coach in place, it would make sense that Kevin Peoples would be the guy, and then maybe Jamari Rasco would help a little bit. What have you heard there about what they might do for spring practice if they don't have a hire in place?
Yeah, I haven't dug too deep on that just because it's been 7 days. So let's see what that would be Thursday, Friday, Saturday. In 10 days, would you make a new hire? Maybe, maybe not. My presumption was exactly what you just said. It's kind of one of the silver linings here. You hate losing Bo Davis, but at least you have the current setup that Baker brought with him of splitting the D-line into two different groups. And your defensive ends and your stand-up edge rushers, those guys have the same continuity they did before with Peoples, and that goes for the guys Peoples was recruiting and obviously developing and so forth. So now you've got to just find someone who's coaching these interior guys, your D tackles, your nose tackles. So, I think probably he pitches in some others. I would think like Baker, but again, I don't think this drags on, Matt, and I don't know what you know or your opinions, but much, much longer. Like I said, wouldn't shock me if they had one before, and I don't think it goes much further into spring ball, though.
Okay. On Monday, I put out the names that I'd heard, which were after Feldman had the report about Gerald Chapman. Al Davis from Missouri was the first name I was told. Let's see. Randall Joyner from Ole Miss was the other one, and then the others were Patrick Hill, Brandon Dedrick, and Travian Robinson. Those were the names that I was told that LSU had contact with or had some interest. Where it stands now, I don't know. If you have anything to add, please feel free.
One thing I've at least been able to do is eliminate kind of some, report. You're reporting that, obviously, that you're putting out names you're hearing, but like fan speculation right away was go get Eric Henderson, who obviously played a big role in getting Jakeem Stewart out to USC. He's a New Orleans native, coached in the NFL, now at Southern Cal. Well, he's an associate head coach. He's a run game. They gave him all the other titles in addition to D-line coach, and he also coaches more than just the interior DT. So that wasn't, it's not realistic to expect that he's going to coach here and coach just the DTs when he's got that sort of trajectory at a younger age. Bo Davis was an alum at the back of end of his career and was given the highest paid D-line coach, position in the country with a chance to come home and be close to family and only have to coach up the one position room instead of a whole group of them. So worked out perfect for him, and we know LSU will spend money, but Matt, I don't think that anyone will eclipse what he made. But at the same time, I still think that they'll go after big names. But that seemed like a stretch in Henderson, and then I think that now, at least from a number of sources I've talked with today, I think we can take Al Davis off that list, who obviously has the ties from Missouri to Baker and Peoples and I guess Jake Olson, who also came from Missouri as well. But the expectation is he won't be the D-line coach. I don't know if he got interviewed or if he wasn't a candidate or what. All I know is that after the reports kind of surfaced, I guess last night, that he was expected to be, it was kind of a hey, pause, that won't be the case. It'll end up being somebody else.
Do you have any other names that you've heard in addition to the ones that I mentioned?
No, and you know what I think is kind of and I don't think that it's being so tight-lipped for a reason as to like, oh, the media can get nothing, but I think they do a good job right now of an inner circle of decision makers in hiring processes that are able to keep things kind of mum. That will may throw out a handful of names or may eliminate some names to different people, but at the same time aren't going to tell you, hey, look, this is it and it's done, and until it is, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened with Alex. I mean, think about the tight ends coaching search. Now, tight ends is kind of a less thought about position, obviously, than D-line. So, like when Slade Nagel left to go be the Houston OC, I don't know, different for you, Matt, if you were calling in every day. I listened to the show a good bit. And it wasn't panic button, where everyone's like, who's the new tight ends coach? Who's the new tight ends coach? And there were no really reports that surfaced. And then it's, they hired Alex Atkins, the guy, a year ago that everyone was like, this Florida State OC tight ends coach coming off that, undefeated season was like one of the hot names out there. And then FSU has a bad season. They shake up the staff. And instead of going somewhere where, like I said, he was a coordinator, he goes to LSU and takes the tight ends coach job. I think that speaks to, hey, look, they're searching for home run type hires here. And I have no reason to doubt it after what they did this time a year ago when they had to hire 5 new on-field coaches, and the product looked much better than it did the year prior. And kind of that goal of, hey, let's go from worst defense in the country to, can we kind of cut a lot of these, important stats in half maybe, and work with a lot of the same guys, but at least we can coach them up a little better, put some new guys out there. And they had those results. It wasn't perfect, but it was in the 60s, let's say. So I think that just hiring one guy here on defense is a move they can take their time with, but at the same time, just find the right guy. And then if that's a few days into spring practice, so be it.
Hey, Shea Dixon on 3, the Bengal Tiger. Get him on Twitter, X at Shea Dixon. So it's interesting you mentioned Alex Atkins, one of the guys that indirectly he'll be able to coach during his time in Baton Rouge, the guy who they had with him at Florida State, which was Solomon Thomas, who's committed, the 5-star interior lineman. It's interesting, Shea, to see a lot of these guys. You were big on Karis Kern getting that 5th star all throughout. We know DJ Pickett went through bowl practice for LSU. What kind of expectations do you have for these newcomers as, Saturday they get on the football field for the first time in spring?
Yeah, at On3, we had 3 guys that signed with LSU high school players, finished as 5 stars. It was Karis Kern, the offensive lineman, the number 2 interior offensive lineman in the country, and then 2 number 1 players at their position. Harlan Berry, right here in Louisiana, number 1 running back in America, coming out of New Orleans 10 years after Fournette did as the number 1 running back. And then at corner, maybe one of the biggest need position or one of, in DJ Pickett, with Corey Raymond coming back and landing the number 1 corner right away. So all 3 of those guys end up as 5 stars. And Matt, this morning I texted you when we were talking about today's show, and I was like, hey, ask me about this, because I had asked, hey, look, spring practice coming up to a source, and I said, how 5 stars looked so far, and said, who were all 5 stars? These 3 guys, and it was those 3 are by far of the early enrollees looking like the best guys. And look, I think there's an expectation, obviously, that Harlan Berry at running back is going to play a lot next year. DJ Pickett may well be on the field week 1 versus Clemson. That's not going to shock anyone. I'm really watching Karis Kern, because whether it's right guard, right tackle, I think that those are 2 spots that seem open for competition, and they've got really good depth, but he'll put himself right into the mix because he's been here already. They've said he was done well, and now he'll get 15 practices under his belt. And mind you, this is an offensive lineman who doesn't need to add weight. He's not skinny. He's already 300 whatever pounds, but is doing front flips, back flips. Charles Power, our national director of scouting, said he's the most athletic testing-wise, not talking about backflips and all that, though that counts, but testing-wise, combined with film, the most athletic offensive lineman he's scouted in recent years. So they are getting a really, really good player there, and where kind of Brad Davis just keeps on going in terms of how much talent he's brought in and stacked up. And look, you lose Zaylon Third, and a year later, no one's even talking about it between portal and how well they recruit that position.
Shea, do we know if Kern's a guy that could potentially play tackle, or is he a guard?
I think he could play tackle. Look, I think right now, and we'll see what all they do in spring, Matt, but that Tyree Adams, who I think people forget, Tyree Adams was a top 100 player coming out of high school. So he just had to wait his turn behind Will Campbell, who happened to be the best left tackle out there, going to be the first lineman picked. So Tyree Adams, if you just say, hey, look, maybe that'll be your first team guy to start out spring, right tackle doesn't have that same answer. I think they're going to try a number of guys there. And look, Weston Davis was a 5-star. He had to wait behind Emory Jones. He'll get a shot. And then you've got Kern, who I think at right guard or tackle is kind of what I've heard. That look, not one of those things where it's like LSU fans are pulling the car over and screaming and quit cross training these guys. It's the O-line. Guys get hurt. This is what you do. Even more so when you're saying we want a starting 5 and we're trying to find the 5 best. So I think Kern fits himself into that battle of we'll see him get reps at right guard and right tackle this spring.
Shea Dixon on 3, the Bengal Tiger. Shea, the dead period is over and spring starts. We know that a lot of recruits get out there to watch spring practice. What
does it have to end? Can it go on forever?
Forever, man. Hey, look, you chose this path. Might I remind you? All right, so
the path chose me. The other way around. I did not want to do this.
Fair enough. All right, so what's the plan now that the dead period's over?
Yeah, it ended on the final day, first day of March. I guess what was that, Monday? Would have been the first day people could have visited. But now that spring practices are set to start, that's the Brian Kelly and this kind of staff, Frank Wilson and them's MO is get guys in for as many spring practices as possible. And we saw it last year. Media gets to go out and watch, and there wasn't a practice when, there wasn't a handful of recruits out there. And I think the goal right now, we know very much in Louisiana who they're after, the Lamar Browns, the Blaine Bradfords, the other guys who, Jabari Mack at Destrehan, the receiver, like they've got guys committed. People who are into recruiting you now have a good feel for, okay, they've got 10 or 11, 12 Louisiana guys they're after. I think this month and next month brings answers to the out-of-state guys and who they're really going to wind up getting and really being in the mix with, because combination of the NIL era and just the reality that you're turning the page to a new cycle, this is when you start to figure things out. And I can remember one of the very first spring practices a year ago, Solomon Thomas and Kerry Kern were out there together, and Thomas committed to Florida State and Kern was committed to Arkansas, and it was like, interesting. Brad Davis has got a couple of these guys out here, even though they're on board with other schools, and now both those guys are at LSU. So I think this is kind of when you start to look at who's visiting, and as I say, watch what they do, not what they say. Quite often, and recruiting pays off. And if guys are on campus a good bit, that shows that the interest is sincere. So we'll see Saturday, starting then, of kind of guys who shows up at different campuses, and I think the next month we'll paint a pretty clear picture of who the top targets are.
Do you think we'll start to see commitments happen during spring football?
For sure. There's going to be a wave of guys who commit even before they make those official visits because, look, they've already got a handful of commits who will make official visits later. And I say that because a number of players have said, Lamar Brown, let's say, for example, has laid out an official visit schedule and said, I'm going to LSU and these schools, and then when that's over with, at the end of June, I'm going to settle in and get ready to make a commitment before my senior year. And that's kind of been the plan for a lot of guys. Now there's going to be others who just go ahead and commit and get it done with. And I think the March and April during spring ball is when we'll see a good bit of that happen. So I'd be shocked if they don't land 3, 4, 5 commits over the next couple of months, and then kind of see where things go heading into those OVs in June.
I did want to ask also about a quarterback. It was the 26 quarterback class is going to be fascinating to watch. Like you and I have talked about, a lot of the 26 guys sort of eluded LSU because Bryce Underwood was on board for so long. Well, now they're engaging, and we saw Bo Bentley's going to take an official visit. He's out of Texas. What can you tell us about him, Shea?
Yeah, unfortunately for Sloan, I think that Sloan does a very good job of identifying guys early and getting on them, and having a relationship, and he kept one. He had one and kept one with a lot of these 26 guys, even knowing, hey, look, we're probably not going to be able to get back-to-back, top 5 quarterbacks if Underwood's coming. There's the reality that kids are going to probably want to go somewhere else and get on the field a little bit more quickly. But he was on sleepers as well, right? I was saying, hey, look, even if he does come, here's a guy that could follow him that nobody else is looking at. And Bo Bentley is one of those guys. Unfortunately, Bo Bentley's now a top 5 quarterback in the country. So there's no hiding him anymore. But Oklahoma or LSU, I think, are going to be the two that people are really watching there. There's a kid out of Texas, for those that don't know, but he's really one of the only uncommitted top targets who are out there, just because those dominoes fall early, and it wasn't expected that one would fall early for LSU because they had Underwood up until the 11th hour. So you had to pivot. And look, I won't be shocked if they land Bo Bentley. That's great. That would be an elite quarterback. But if it's not Bo Bentley, it's probably going to end up being someone who's currently committed to another school and that you work to flip.
Shea Dixon on 3, the Bengal Tiger. Get him on Twitter at Shea Dixon. Always appreciate it, man. Thanks for making time.
Yeah, we'll talk soon. I appreciate it, Matt.
Right.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.